Educational GMAT. Your partner in your GMAT journey.
All right. I think the argument itself is not difficult to understand. By the way, what is Greenville Times?
Newspaper organization.
Organization. Okay. What kind of an organization?
A newspaper organization.
Sorry.
Media.
Media. All right. Okay.
It's a newspaper.
Yeah. I mean, yes, which is media. So absolutely correct. So more specifically, it looks like a newspaper to me, like an Hindustan Times or whatever Times of India. Okay. Now, how do newspapers earn? By the way, obviously, one is subscribers pay. What is the other source of revenue for the newspapers?
Advertising.
Advertising, right? So if a business advertises in the newspaper, then obviously that business pays to the newspaper for publishing the advertisement. Okay. Now, the newspaper itself had a sales force. Sales force means salespeople, right? So earlier, how was it? Earlier, the sales force was organized geographically, right? So basically, let us say one person who is looking at the north Greenville, right? Another is focused on looking at or addressing all the clients in South Greenville. Then one for East, another one for, one for West, another one for East, and then perhaps another one for Central, right? So there is this particular salesperson who would be looking at all the businesses in North Greenville. This person would be looking at all the businesses in South Greenville, West, East, and Central. This was the situation earlier. Now, what have they done? They have reorganized. The reorganization attempted to increase the sales representatives' knowledge of clients' business by having each sales representative deal with only one kind of industry. So what does it mean, one kind of industry? Let us say now there would be a person who would be looking at all retail businesses in entire Greenville, right? Irrespective of whether that retail business is in North Greenville or South Greenville or whatever. Another salesperson would be looking at, let us say, all manufacturing related businesses across Greenville, right? Another would be looking at, let's say, all the government establishments across Greenville. So this was the reorganization. This was before reorganization. Now, what happened after the reorganization? With this, revenue from advertising sales increased. So with this, what is the argument trying to prove or conclude? That reorganization was the reason for increased revenue from advertising, right? That reorg was the reason for increase in revenue from advertising. Mind you, we have to evaluate this. We have to evaluate this, right? In other words, what additional information would help us to either strengthen or weaken this conclusion? Is everyone clear? We are not taking this conclusion on its face value. We are saying that before we conclude this, we need some other information, because having an answer to that information would help us either conclude or reject this conclusion. Either accept or reject this conclusion. Okay. Yes, friends. Can someone tell me why is alpha incorrect? Why is alpha incorrect? So this is where the scope becomes so important. As far as Greenville Times goes, right? Uh, we already identified that there would be multiple sources of revenue for any newspaper. One would be subscription as in the customers who are buying this, and then second would be advertisements, right? So now notice we are not really concerned about whether this brings 90% of revenues and this brings 10%, or whether this brings 10% and this brings 90%, right? We are not concerned about that. Whatever the revenue was from advertising, right? As a result of reorg of the sales force, this increased is given to us as a fact. Sorry, what is given to us as a fact is that advertising revenue increased. What is being debated is what is the reason for the increase in advertising revenue? Was it the reorg? Right? That's the question that we are answering. So the percentage of revenues from subscription versus advertisement is out of scope. All right. Similarly, how about Charlie? How
Again,
about Charlie?
we are not bothered with which type is larger or
Correct.
not. So,
We are not bothered about which type. By the way, which type, what does it mean? Is manufacturing contributing the most? Is retail contributing the most? Is the government sector contributing the most? We are least bothered. All right. So Alpha gone, Charlie gone. How about David? Do any clients have a standing order? All right. Again, this is really inconsequential, guys. For example, there may be a client that would commit, let's say, to Greenville Times that I would give you $10,000 per month. How does that matter? How does that matter? Okay. How about Edward? Again, notice it's saying that are there more retail businesses or more industrial businesses? How do we care? How do we care? So that, my friends, leaves you with Baker. Can someone tell me, and now that we know Baker is the right answer, why do you think Baker is the right answer?
because if the circulation increases, more people want to advertise in your newspaper.
And in fact, more people would be willing to pay more.
They will be willing to pay
Right?
more as well. Yes.
Correct? Right? See, if, for example, in India, from what I know, you guys are all internet, all right. But then, from what I know, Times of India as a newspaper, by the way. So it had the largest circulation in India, in at least in English newspapers. So obviously, because it has the largest circulation, advertisers are willing to pay more for having their advertisements published because they know that they would that their advertisements would have a larger reach. Correct. So again, what is the argument concluding, guys? What is the argument concluding? So it is clear that advertising revenue increased for Greenville Times. The argument is saying, what is the argument saying? That reorg of the sales force was the reason for increase in advertising revenue. What is Baker saying? Baker is saying that increased newspaper circulation, right? Newspaper circulation could also be an increase. It could also be a reason for increase in advertising revenue. Remember from our last classes, what is this doing? It's an alternate reason for this cause. Alternate reason for this effect. Now let's apply this. Let's apply the framework. And what was the framework that we discussed for evaluate the argument? Provide two mutually opposite extreme answers. Let us say we answer this as no. Has the circulation of Greenville Times increased substantially? No. If this is the case, then it strengthens the argument, which is basically strengthening the conclusion that perhaps reorg was the reason for increase in revenue from advertising sales. On the other hand, if we answer this as yes, has the circulation increased? Yes. If this is the case, then it is weakening the conclusion, right? Then we are saying that perhaps it was not the reorg, but increase in circulation that resulted in an increase in revenue from advertising sales. So again, notice providing two mutually opposite extreme answers to Baker is giving us two mutually opposite conclusions.